Hey everyone, welcome back to Bear's Workshop. In today's video, we are going to talk about Rivian and possibly where they're going. We're going to take a look at the pros and cons of the two locations that we know of that are possibilities, and we're going to analyze it a little bit and see whether or not which one's going to work better for Rivian. So let's go take a look. So what we're going to be looking at is the possible factory site for either the R1T, the R1S, or the delivery van that Rivian's going to be building. Don't know what they're going to be building there, like which product. I would assume if it's the R1T, they'll also do the R1S, of course, or maybe they're building a separate plant for the Amazon delivery van, which I don't know. There's possibilities of just depending on where they decide that they're going to take their factory. We have two options right now. One is Arizona and one is just west of Fort Worth. In Arizona, it's just east of Mesa, Arizona. By a couple miles, we'll take a look at that. We're going to take a little in-depth look at the map for both sites and the pros and cons for each site and see which one's going to be better. So we've got the Rivian homepage here. Got the R1T, which is the pickup truck, and then the R1S, which is the SUV. And you can configure them out to $80,000, $90,000. There's a lot of little options to put on them, and it's not as streamlined as like you might find on a Tesla when you order from there, because it's like boop, 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 and then you're done, and then it's like, give me money. So it's a nice website though, and shows the truck outdoors. We've got places in the Arizona site. There's a place that doesn't look too much different from this, so there'd be some testing areas. But let's just, before we get into that, back on July 28th, there was a couple articles about Rivian possibly building a $5 billion plant on a 10,000 acre site in Arizona, which is an enormous amount of space. That's about 16 square miles. So they're talking with the governor, Doug Ducey, and they're going to try and get their tax breaks and see what they can do. What they're looking at is Project Terra. Now, Project Terra is a big factory, and it would be anywhere from 2,000 square acres to 10,000 square acres. But they're looking to make 200,000 vehicles a year at that site, which you don't need that much space for that, but they're going to create about 7,500 jobs by 2027, and that's just permanent jobs there, not including their construction jobs. Texas has already granted them tax abatements of $440 million, which is a ton of money. Right now it looks like Fort Worth may be the front runner. Arizona has some infrastructure issues, and we'll take a look at the maps and see what those are real quick in a couple of moments. But also in Project Terra, 50 gigawatt battery production, and that's quite a bit, and produce either the R1S, the R1T, or the Amazon delivery van. We'll still have to wait to see what they say on that. They're also going to have a product and technology center, and they're going to have a net zero carbon emission from the factory, which, to achieve that is going to be better for Arizona, or more likely in Arizona than it would be in Dallas, or at least it would probably be cheaper. So they announced, this got leaked July 28th regarding Arizona. So a couple weeks later, there's talk that there's a site near Fort Worth, and that it's the front runner for Project Terra. This announcement is probably going to be made in a couple weeks. We just don't know when, but Texas is all about this. They've got the tax breaks already approved. Now no one said where the tax breaks are going to be from, what they're going to be from Arizona. Nobody, that hasn't been released yet. And Arizona is really pushing for stuff like this. They did a lot of breaks for the Nikola site down in Coolidge. Lucid got a bunch of breaks down in Casa Grande. There's Electrica Mechanica, which is building three-wheeler electric cars, and that is not too far from the proposed site for Rivian. And there's other things that are going on around the Arizona area in here. The area for Texas, so if we take a look here on Google Maps, we can zoom in. This is the area right here. This is where I-30 and I-20 meet, which is a real good place to have a factory, because you're meeting up with two interstates, so it just gives you different abilities to go to different areas. Not only that, where this is located down south from here, if you come out, you can get down to the ports down here, and that gives you access, and that's probably a couple 100 miles distance. We could check that real quick. So here's Walsh Ranch, and if we zoom out, we'll measure the distance to the port, and just take a little measuring stick and from our little pin go down here. We're looking at 294 miles down to Galveston, and I'm not sure exactly where the ports are, but I know that there's quite a few down here. If you're in Arizona, and well, let's go to the Arizona map, and you take a look here. This is where they're looking at putting the factory. You can see this is the Phoenix, well, actually this is the Phoenix area right here. This is a couple other towns, Gilbert, Chandler, Tempe. So this is all populated right here, and this is where they're looking at. And this is a big area right here. It's flat out here, and just to the north, you've got some mountainous terrain that it gets pretty steep there. But when we measure this out, which we can do on this page, maybe not on this page. Let's go back. Okay, so looking at this area, this is where they're looking at a possible factory. This is a very large area right here. It's mostly flat. You can see when you zoom in, you got a little bit of areas where the water runs off the mountains, but that's going to be easily controlled. The main problem here is this road right here, which is called 60. It comes up here, and it's a 2-lane road all the way into Phoenix, and then it would meet up with the I-10. It's a little bit out of the way as far as what you need for a road. It's a decent amount of space from here to the I-10. If you're going this way, you're looking at 35 miles, and if you wanted to go a different way, you could probably go down south and take the roads this way, but you're still going 35, 40 miles away, depending on which areas you needed to go to. But this is the area, and when we circle it and try and measure it out, 16 square miles. So if you go 4 by 4 by 4, and then back to where it is, it's a little wide, but that's 17 square miles. But you can see how that's 10,000 acres right there, and it's a huge area that you can just do whatever you want with. Also, you've got areas that are right across from 60, which is where you get into hilly terrain, which would be great for testing. None of this is occupied, so there's plenty of areas out there in Arizona. There's plenty of areas in Texas, and they both have decent space, except for the fact that Arizona's area is 5 times what is available at Fort Worth. But there's other things to look at, and there's other important facts. So for Arizona, the pros for them, they have 10,000 acres available, and it's a lot of land. You can do whatever you want. So you got more areas for testing with going over mountainous terrains or whatever you want to do there. With that extra 8,000 square acres, you can do things like build a battery recycling plant. Rivian wants to get into reusing their batteries and turning it into like Rivian Energy. And with some of their prototypes, when they retired them, they took the battery packs out, and then it was turned into storage. And that's a great idea, to recycle the batteries and then actually make something very useful out of it without having to do too much. So there's an area for a battery recycling plant if that's something that they wanted to do. Now the solar opportunity in Arizona, I don't know what it would be if, like, there's probably some scale to measure, but it's got to be a whole lot better than Texas. I was in Texas a couple weeks ago. It was rainy, it was cloudy, there were lots lots of weather, and every time you have a cloud pass over your solar panel, you're going to lose power. Arizona, we have so much sun here. Back like 50, 60, 70 years ago, they used to advertise the hotels here that if it wasn't sunny, your hotel room was free. So that's how much sun we get. We get very little rain. When we get it, it comes down hard, doesn't last long, makes a mess, and everybody moves on. So the solar opportunity with having 10,000 acres is enormous. You can make a solar farm out here, and you could do a lot with that, and that would get them to the zero emissions that they want. As far as what the factory uses, much easier, much cheaper, much quicker than Fort Worth area. We also have something that most people don't realize, and most of the country doesn't have this. We have no natural disasters. Occasionally we get some flooding areas, but it's very, very rare. We don't even have a sewer system, but we don't flood because we don't have much rain. When we do, it's pretty much set up to handle most of the water, and we have retention basins, and things usually don't get too bad out here. We have flash flood areas because they're usually close to the mountains, and areas can flood where the roads are low in certain places. Other than that, we don't have flooding, we don't have earthquakes, we don't have hurricanes, tornadoes, volcanoes, any kind of natural disaster. Texas, on the other hand, will have lots of bad weather. We all saw what happened in the wintertime this year. I know that was a fluke, but Texas was not ready for that because they didn't have battery storage. So they could have freezing weather. They also can have tornadoes. Hurricanes, no, not so much. But they have a lot of thunderstorms, a lot of lightning storms, things like that. So Arizona gets the nod on no natural disasters and solar opportunity and the amount of land. One of Arizona's problems, though, is that road that we're looking at here, this 60, it needs to be expanded. Some of the area where the factory has streetlights. So there's about 4 streetlights in the Gold Canyon area, 4, maybe 6. So you go up to 55, you go a mile, you stop and go. So some of that, there needs to be a better freeway that actually goes through there than what's there now. So that's a big issue. Both sites have potential water issues. People have talked about Arizona. Well, you put out there, they've got no water, you're going to use so much water. Arizona actually has some of the best water supply in the country. They get a certain percentage of what comes out of the Colorado River. They've got a deal with California, Arizona's involved, Nevada, and Utah, and how that water is dispersed. And Arizona actually has the better side of the deal. Arizona also has underground aquifers where they store water. So when they have excess water, they pump it down into the ground for later use. They also have the Central Arizona Project, which also controls our flooding, but we've got water that comes from that, and a lot of water that comes off the mountains when the snow melts in the spring, and it all comes down into the valley and it goes into our reservoirs. Right now, one of the lakes that I go to, which is just northeast of the valley here, and it's actually not far. I'll show you where it is on the map. This lake right here, Saguaro Lake, this is probably a good 30 miles from the site. There's a reservoir right here, and this thing is completely full. I was there a week and a half ago, and it's almost overflowing because of our water retention system. And all of this that we're looking at here is water, lakes and reservoirs, and they go all the way up into the mountains. So Arizona really doesn't have a water issue. They've been handling it very well. If you build out here like a community, you have to prove a 100-year water supply. It's part of getting permits, and that's something that's done. Now Dallas, I know, is having water issues. I know that they had tons of water issues. Right after that storm, there was about 1 million people were without drinking water for a while because of the freeze. They weren't set up for it. And I understand it's because of the freeze, but I've also heard that Texas is having issues with water, and they don't have the water supply that Arizona might have. So Arizona's going to get the point for water issues because they don't have them. talking about Texas now, some of the pros on Texas is the workforce. The workforce in Texas, there's probably going to be more people available. Whether there's enough qualified people, it's going to vary for both state. But both locations are within commuting distance of large populations. You've got Fort Worth, Dallas, plenty of people there. In Arizona, you've got Mesa, Chandler, Gilbert, then into Phoenix, and so there's millions of people there. Now, Texas could suffer from the qualified people going to work for Tesla down in Austin. It's about 3 hours away from Dallas-Fort Worth area, but if somebody really wants to work for Tesla, they may be buying a home down there, and that may be something that they want to do. And you can lose a lot of potential people. Personally, if I had a skill that I could use in the EV industry and qualification, and it was between Tesla and Rivian, I'd probably take Tesla because the proven track record of producing cars and you can see what they've already got. So I think Texas does have that. It has the workforce advantage, but not by much. Texas has the access to infrastructure such as highways and ports in Mexico. Arizona does have access to Mexico. I think Arizona may actually have the advantage to Mexico depending on where their suppliers are. If we look at this map here, and you can see my hand going across, this is around where the border is, and the Arizona site would be about here, and the Texas site is here. If we were to just draw a straight line to Nogales in Arizona, that's 205 miles. If we draw a straight line from Fort Worth area and maybe follow I-35, you're looking at 375 miles. But if the suppliers are over here on the right side, on the east side of Mexico, then definitely advantage to Texas. Now, if they're over here, then Arizona will get that advantage, but I have a feeling that they're probably on the Texas side. So some of the cons on the Texas site is it's a smaller site. We already know that, 2,000 versus 10,000 square acres. The weather is not so good for solar to help with the zero emissions. It's still pretty adequate. I mean, if you compare it to someplace up north, it's definitely going to be better than there, but Arizona's going to have the advantage on that. We talked about natural disasters. There are things like you could get remnants of hurricanes. You're not going to get much other, but you're just going to get severe storms. You're going to have a lot of thunderstorms, lightning storms, possible tornadoes, freezing weather in the winter. And I think the construction will cost more in Texas than Arizona. I think their foundations are going to have to be built better, or not built better, but built deeper. If you look at these areas in Texas, if you look at the ground here, it's all wetlands. Tesla had to do a lot of pilings, thousands of them, in order to get the ground the way they needed it to be. But you've got a couple of ponds in here. And I know these areas are going to retain water and they're going to be very wet. Arizona is completely the opposite as far as that goes. This is all dry. So the construction is going to be a little bit easier in Arizona, probably a little cheaper because of that. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference though. But I still think after looking at all this, I'm going to say that because of the infrastructure issues, I think Fort Worth has the advantage. I think that's a pretty big piece of the puzzle, is to be able to ship your vehicles out quickly, easily, and that is a big advantage to Fort Worth. I'm rooting for Arizona. I don't know what kind of tax incentives that they've given, but hopefully it's just something that's fantastic in order to get Rivian out here. And the tax breaks that they give in Fort Worth don't need to be the same that they are in Arizona, because the taxes are less in Arizona than they are in Fort Worth area. So what if they're going to say, well, we're going to give you, let's say for example, 10 years free taxes, property taxes in Arizona, 10-year free property taxes in Fort Worth. One might be 300 million, one might be 400 million, but it's all free in the end. So maybe they just need to give them 15 years or something if they want to win the deal, but they got to do something to win the deal. It's a lot of jobs, it's a lot of money, and I think both areas need to fight as hard as they can to get them, because I think Rivian's going to be a success wherever they go, and so is the area that they go to. So good luck to Arizona, good luck to Fort Worth. May the better city win, or state. That's all I have. I'm interested in your comments. What you think? What did I leave out? Did I forget anything? But respond down in the comments and tell me what you think. Who do you think is going to win? And what did I miss? So thanks for watching. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more content like this in the future, please hit the subscribe button. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.